The second option we have, meaning the second model that we can use, is referred to as the step-down model. And under the step-down model, the indirect costs that are associated with the support departments are still allocated to the primary care departments, just like they were under direct allocation. But now we're also going to allocate those costs among the other support departments in sequence. And one last point to note, and this will make a bit more sense later on in the course, but for now, just note that we don't reallocate costs under this model like we would in the reciprocal model. But again, we'll cover that in more detail later on. So for now, our first step under the step-down model is to allocate our admin costs, which totaled $1 million, to our three primary departments as well as housekeeping. And the beginning of this problem will look fairly similar to what we did under the direct allocation method. The biggest difference is that now we're also going to recognize the square footage of the support departments in addition to the primary care departments. But we only do this one department at a time. So for step one, when we want to allocate the admin costs, the total square footage moves up from 70,000 to 80,000 because we need to determine how much of those costs are going to get allocated to the housekeeping department. Once we understand that, the process for performing the calculations is virtually the same. We'll determine how much of the overall square footage each department accounts for, and you'll see that we actually calculated those figures for you, and we have them in the slide deck under that second area, kind of in the middle of your slide. The last portion of this problem is actually performing the cost allocation based on those figures that we calculated in the middle portion. But this time, we're going to multiply the 1 million, the admin costs, by those percentages that we calculated above. So now, housekeeping's total cost is $625,000, and we arrive there by adding the initial $500K that we identified, and we're also adding that additional $125,000 of cost that now gets allocated from the admin department. Now, the next step is kind of similar to what we did in step one, but in this case, we're going to allocate the other support department's costs, housekeeping, to just the three patient care departments, the primaries: emergency department, surgical services, and radiology. And this is a critical part of the step-down method, and one of the key things that differentiates it from the reciprocal method. Under step two, we're not going to reallocate the costs of the second support department to the first support department. So what we're not going to do is allocate housekeeping to admin, even though we allocated admin to housekeeping in the first step. For the second support department, again, we're only going to allocate the costs to the primary care departments. So again, very important distinction. Make sure that you understand that. So in this case, the square footage basis now goes back to 70,000 since we're only considering the three patient care departments. And these will basically be the same percentages that we calculated before under the direct allocation method, so I can save you some math on this slide. Lastly, we're going to calculate the actual cost allocation by, again, multiplying the percentages that we have above by the amount of costs related to housekeeping. In this case, we're going to multiply those percentages by the 500,000 of indirect costs from that housekeeping support department. And the third and final step under the step-down method is to add up the allocations from both of the support departments, the admin and the housekeeping, to determine the total allocated cost that's going to be applied to each primary care department. So we'll essentially take the totals that we identified from steps 1 and 2 and add those up to arrive at our final numbers. So under the step-down method, we allocated around $587K to the emergency department, about $491,000 to surgery, and about $295,000 to radiology. So certainly a bit more involved than the direct allocation method, but again, we've got a higher degree of accuracy when we use the step-down method.